Hey guys, thanks for coming back and watching another video. Today I'm talking about why it's critical to plant potatoes in the fall. Now, not all zones this is possible. Some zones the frost line just gets too deep and your potatoes will be liquefied because of the extremely cold weather. But I'm lucky I'm in zone 7A, which makes it possible. So we're going to plant these now, the 1st of October, and we'll have a head start on next year's potato crop. Now, another great reason to start in fall is the cooler weathers are promoting those potato tubers and roots to grow. Another thing is you have less pests to worry about, and so this is a perfect time for me to plant. Now, speaking of the pest, in the fall, many of the pests that would normally attack potatoes are much less active in the fall, so there's a much greater chance of success and less problems with insects that would normally attack healthy potato plants. Now, in my zone 7A, October is one of our rainiest months, so it means that there's less need to water, and it makes the soil perfect in every way for that potato root production. Now today I'm going to be adding some compost to the soil. I'm going to be turning the soil, and I'm going to be putting in some additives to the soil that's going to make the soil perfect for next year's potatoes. Another great thing about planting in the fall is going to lead to larger potatoes and better tasting potatoes next spring and early summer. Now, fall is also a great time because there's less things going on in the garden. We have less activities and chores to do, so this is the perfect time. You can focus all your energy on getting your potatoes in the ground, and you don't have to worry about maintaining and doing all the other things you normally do during the productive summer months. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my compost in, and I'm going to turn the soil, and we'll just go through that really quick. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the irrigation hoses from the vegetables we had planted here earlier, and I'm going to get those out of the way, and I'm going to start turning the soil. So guys, I want to make sure the soil has a lot of organic matter. It needs to be a little bit on the acidic side, between 5 and 6, and I'm going to use my meter for that, and I'll show you that in just a second. But we want to add 3 ingredients to this bed to help maximize potato production. Guys, the first thing I'm going to add is some just standard potting mix. I want the soil to be very light. We want the roots in those tubers to have some really light soil that has a lot of nutritional value to send out those roots and produce the tubers and create next year's potatoes. Now the next 2 things we're going to add is going to be our black cow and our peat moss. We're going to do a full bag of black cow, which is our compost, and about half a cubic foot of peat moss. Now, a couple of things to take into consideration is your own personal taste and preference for what type of potato you like, and also whether or not it can grow in your climate. Now, another thing that's critical is selecting the date that you're going to plant. You want to do that about 2 to 4 weeks before your first expected frost. Now, we've prepared our soil bed or our raised bed here with really good compost, really good soil, and we went down to at least a depth of 6 inches. So you need to make sure that your potatoes, that soil has been moved and tilled and ready to go for the potatoes, because you don't want to have less than 6 inches of really good organic material for those potatoes to grow in. Make sure you test your soil and make sure it's at a pH between 5 and 6. In order to get an accurate reading, your soil will have to be slightly moist, not waterlogged, but you want the soil to not be dry to get an accurate reading. Now, in addition to the new soil I put in and the compost, I am going to add an organic fertilizer that has high phosphorus. Now, the potatoes you choose are going to be really important too. If you're going with not a seed potato from an established supplier or a reputable supplier, you want to make sure that the potatoes you get are organic. If they're not organic, they may have been treated with an inhibitor, which will mean they will not sprout chits and they will not grow new potatoes. Now, if you decide to cut the potatoes into smaller pieces to have more potatoes that you can plant, you're going to want to make sure that you allow that cut to heal over, to kind of scab over, to prevent that from becoming diseased and rotting. I'm going to use the entire potato because I don't want to have to wait for that process to take place. I want to get these in the ground as fast as possible. Now in this bed, I'm going to create 3 rows. I'm going to make them about 5 to 6 inches deep. In my area, my frost line is about 4 to 5 inches, and so that should be protection enough. But in addition to the soil on top of them, I'm going to come in and put in a little bit of straw mulch, or in my case, pine straw. I'm going to tell you why I wouldn't use standard straw that you might find at the big box store. Now, it's a good idea if the potatoes do come out of the ground before your first frost that you monitor them for pests. You want to spray it with neem oil, and that would be a good idea even before they come out of the ground, just to knock down any pests that might be in the soil that you can't see. Now, next year when these start to come out in the springtime, you might have a late season frost, and you want to be prepared that if that does happen, you can put down either frost blankets or another layer of straw just to cover them until the frost danger is past. So I'm going to get started by creating our trenches, 3 trenches, and they're, remember, 18 inches apart, 15 to 8 inches apart between each potato. So I've got my first row of potatoes here set, and what I want to do is I want to talk about a little bit of the things that you might encounter with your garden that you may need to add some more amendments to it. If your soil is too acidic, you may want to add some lime to bring your pH up to a 5 or 6. Again, you're just going to want to keep using your pH meter until you get that perfect point of 5 to 6. It's not hard to do, but you just have to do those amendments, especially with the lime, or if you're too alkaline, the peat moss. Now, potatoes really like magnesium, so you're going to add, if you have a magnesium deficiency in your soil, you're going to want to add a little bit of Epsom salt to help correct that magnesium deficiency. Now, if you have heavy clay soils, you might want to add gypsum to it, and that will also help with the heavy clay that you might have. So remember, gypsum is an important additive in that case. Now, an organic source of phosphorus, I'm using bone meal, and I recommend using this on your potatoes. You can put it directly in the trench and then cover it, but this will definitely help for your phosphorus needs on your potatoes. Now, if you have a burn pit or you have access to wood ash, that's another good thing that can also help with the pH of your soil. So that's really another additive you can add. So some zones that this can be done in, I know it's possible in zone 7 because I do it, but as you get further up that chart of zones 3, 4, 5, you're probably going to have to add more depth to your potatoes and more winter protection for frost, because as your frost line gets deeper, you're going to get more damage on those potatoes, and your potatoes will probably rot from the extreme cold if the frost line reaches that low to where your potatoes are. Like I said earlier, my frost line is only about 4 to 5 inches, so that's the thing to remember. Do some research and find out exactly what your frost line is. I think you can find that on weather.gov to get an exact map of your area. Now, as far as the dates for planting, zones 3 through 7 is about August and September. Now, in zone 7, you can go as late as late September and early October, just as long as you're not too close to that frost date. Now, zones 10 and 11, you have less problems with frost. There's very little chance of it there, so you can probably plant October through December, depending on your exact location. Frost is not going to really be an issue there. So guys, since I'm running out of daylight here and the sun has actually went over the horizon, I'm going to add my bone meal, plant the next 2 rows, and then I will be very close to having this completed with one final step. So guys, one last thing I want to talk about, I'm sorry the vine's getting in the way here, but anyways, is about what you're going to cover the potatoes with for protection from the winter frost. So here's the problem with using straws. This straw, I don't know what was added to the straw, and it's growing, and there's a good chance it could have been sprayed with chemicals. This pine straw, for instance, I know where it came from, and I know that the farm that it was collected from was a pine tree farm, and it's only pine straw, no chemicals added. So I'm going to cover the potato bed with this pine straw, a good thick layer of it to protect it until next spring. And that way I know there's no chemicals or something I don't want in the soil. So we'll do that as our last step, and a few more things to talk about. Hey guys, so this bed is completely through for the day, and one thing I will say is I understand that this is not possible in many zones because it's just too cold in the winter. It's just too cold in the winter, and your frost line gets way too deep, so it's just not possible. Here in zone 7A, this is very easy to do. Yeah, we do get some cold weeks and months during the winter, but not extreme. It's not extreme. And with this frost protection, it's going to work just fine. I'll have an early head start on my potatoes next summer, and I'll be harvesting very early compared to if I waited till the springtime to do this. Hey guys, so the last thing you want to do is make sure that you've added the right amendments to your soil, and you'll need a pH meter to know exactly what's going on in your soil. You can have it tested professionally, but you're talking about a delay in time for mailing your sample. So I think a good pH meter is going to help you quite a bit. Also, you can use the pH meter in the dead of winter to check your soil temperatures to see if you need to add another layer of protection of straw just in case your soil temperatures are too cold. So the last thing we're going to do, I'm going to heavily water this in and we'll be through for the day. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you'll consider planting potatoes in the fall if you're in the right zone. If it's possible and your frost line doesn't get too deep, it's definitely a doable thing. So guys, have a great day, and thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll like and subscribe if you found something you really found useful.